Wing Commander was easily the most popular space sim of its time, and really it only gained popularity for several years. But it wasn't the first. Well, okay, you probably can't call this one a space sim, but even so, there were games before that. Probably the earliest known space game was called Spacewar. Note the exclamation point. It was created in 1961 at MIT by some students. We got Steve Russell, and then Martin Great, and then Alan Kotick. You know, the controls are pretty simple. You could rotate clockwise, you could rotate counterclockwise, you could thrust, you could fire. It produced tons and tons of clones, most famously probably asteroids. Okay, but here's my point. Like, blowing things up in space and video arcade games went hand in hand. You know, during the golden age of video arcade gaming, you know, late 70s, this is almost 20 years later, you still are seeing this all over the place. Maybe the popularity of these games had something to do with a movie that came out around this time, I don't know. But maybe it was just a great excuse for blowing stuff up on a black background. I mean, what kind of story would you have to come up with anyways for this type of gameplay to be on Earth?
Beware, I live.
I'm not saying that space games were only made because they were easier to make. And maybe this sort of reasoning, though, allowed space games to be made more readily. Now, what if you wanted to make a first-person shooter at this time? I mean, you'd have to animate the background so that it looked like you were moving. I mean, the entire background would have to be moving, which is not a small task. The easiest way you could do it, though, would be with dots, like stars. Star Raiders is widely recognized as one of the, if not the first-person space shooter. It was originally developed for the Atari 400 and 800 by Doug Neubauer. These were Atari systems that were 8-bit, and they were meant to be follow-ups to the Atari 2600, but they never really became that popular. Most of us probably played the 2600 version that was released later, or the sequel to that, which are excellent games. So this game's got a map. It's got two radars. It's got a long-distance radar, it's got a short-distance radar, and it's pretty easy to see how influential this was on the genre. The next step in the evolution of this genre was Elite. This was a PC game which definitely has elements similar to Star Raiders, but were obviously updated. Actually, this game has a lot more in common thematically with Wing Commander and Privateer than it does with the original Wing Commander. Elite was a space trader game more than a strict space combat simulator.